Generative AI Stories with Chris Wilke.
The Azure and Devops podcast is a show for developers and DevOps professionals shipping software using the latest in .NET, Azure, AI, and DevOps. Listen on to learn how to increase quality, ship quickly, and operate well. The show is sponsored by ClearMeasure, a full-service software architecture and engineering firm. Find them at www.clearmeasure.com. And now your host, Jeffrey Palermo.
Welcome to the show. I'm Jeffrey Palermo, your host for helping you and your teams move fast and deliver quality and to run your software with confidence in Azure, all while using everything that the .NET ecosystem has to offer. My guest today on the show is Chris Wilke, and Chris has been around the software industry for a long time, 25 years, and he's been in software as a service and also an AI product leader, known for practical and people-first strategies to harness value from generative AI for operational excellence. Chris has developed the AI Vantage framework, which is a strategic approach that emphasizes process-driven transformation to unlock immediate and long-term value from GenAI technologies. He works for Viewport as the head of technology, and he's a respected voice in the AI and product management space. And he frequently shares insights through training and blogs and speaking engagements. Chris holds certifications in the safe product ownership and pragmatic marketing, and is also an alumnus of Texas A&M University, Gig 'em Aggies. Chris, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine, Jeffrey. Thanks for having me today. This is great.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. You've been in technology for your whole career, and you were the head of a technology department. I want to kind of dive into that and get your take on AI, but I always like the listeners to understand what level of expert they're listening to. If you kind of go back and maybe touch on one or two points in your career that have really like captured your passion and what's made it fun to stay in software for so long.
Boy, it is fun to be in software because you've got to maintain curiosity. But my journey began, as you said, at Texas A&M University, and I was a freshman in 1993, before the web browser was even invented.
Yeah.
And I was so excited because I could get on effectively the internet, but you're telnetting in or FTPing into places and getting all kinds of information. And I was so excited about it. I was talking to my professor, and she's like, "Hey, if you think this is really cool, come in my office." And Mark Andreessen had just released the Mosaic web browser, and I downloaded it. We browsed, I can't remember, like all 600 sites on the internet, and I'm like, "This is going to change everything." And so, I've always been excited about how technology can enable people to do more, and that web browser moment was one of those key moments for me.
Nice. Well, I didn't quite get on the internet until 95, so you got a couple on me. But yeah, that did change everything, where there was, I guess even in the late 90s, some people were saying, why do I need to network these computers together? What's the point? And nowadays, we don't even think twice when setting up a new computer. We say, where's the Wi-Fi?
Right. Can't live without it. I think, the parallel for me in the generative AI space, when the web browser came, the way that we learn, the way that we work, the way that we buy, everything is completely different than it was back in 1993. And it was November of 2022. I was at my in-laws' house in Austin, Texas for Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to go say, let's go look at this ChatGPT thing and see what's going on. And, AI had been evolving for decades, really, through machine learning and a lot of different things. But what OpenAI did, making generative AI visible and accessible to millions of people, I never thought I would see in my career another web browser moment. And when I touched ChatGPT for the first time, and even though it was, you could see it was like a little infant stumbling around, but I knew immediately that this was going to be a game changer. It was fantastic.
So over the last couple of years, you've seen the futurists who are saying, big and lofty statements, and then the naysayers saying, "What? It's just a chatbot, and everything it says is wrong anyway. What are you talking about?" And I can see a future where 10 years from now where every single business is using AI in some form or fashion, some heavier, some less. Um, but can you kind of pare down on the futuristic statements, and what are you and your organization using generative AI for, like, literally right now? Not stuff that piloting, like, hey, maybe we'll use it in the future, but what scenarios have you found that, hey, it's ready and we're already deriving value now?
Yeah, two primary areas where I think you can drive value immediately. One is with AI coding. So the coding tools have gotten really good, right? And even my most skeptical engineers, people that are actually, the 10x type engineers, they'll look at it and say, you know what, it was okay a year ago. Now they're like, it's junior level developer, good now, but you still have to kind of monitor and watch it. But it's multiplying their throughput. I mean, they're able to do much more faster. So for me, coding is something right away you can use. And then the second thing is what I call just an AI pipeline. It's a combination of old school deterministic code that goes through a series of steps, but you infuse generative AI in some of those black box steps to do things that you couldn't do previously, like inferring context from a document, or uh, looking at metadata, or writing new information, right? So to me, this is where you can really start to embed an AI pipeline to do repetitive white collar work. Everything from legal work to media work, writing articles, to reviewing you know, case law, whatever you can imagine. And what's really, there's no magic in this. I mean, people talk about large language models and generative AI and taking over the world. It's a computer. At the end of the day, it's a computer with an input and an output. And so if you can specify your steps and say, what's the input and what output do I expect? Then I think you can really start to make investments that actually pay off.
Well, I want to kind of dig into those two. The first one, the AI coding. I think we've heard the stories of, what was it, Claude Sonnet said that they kicked something off and came back 30 something hours later and had built a complete to-do app, and you got that side versus the using it inside the IDE. So specifically, what tools are your engineers using, and how are they using it?
So specifically for me personally and our team, we're investing into Codex. So Anthropic's Claude is amazing. There are a lot of phenomenal YouTube videos out there. I've recommended that to friends, or to use within their company, and I've heard great success stories. For me, our investment is into Codex right now because it's in the OpenAI ecosystem. So for $20 a month, with an OpenAI team workspace, you're getting access to ChatGPT on the web, ChatGPT desktop, Codex web, Codex CLI, and then also it works inside the IDE as well. So just the bang for your buck on that is really good. And then I always think about, everybody's kind of tick for tack, and I more kind of blur my eyes and say, how do I work with the tool in front of me? Because the hockey stick of improvement is so strong. I mean, it's, if you look at some of the literature, people are estimating, like they call it the new Moore's law, where, processors would double every, let's say, 18 months, right? So same price, twice the power. And so the new Moore's law that they talk about is the length of tasks that AI can do for you, right? So if you think back to November 2022, like I could tell ChatGPT to program for me. It would take me 30 seconds to write the prompt, and it would write code that basically would take me 30 seconds to write. So it's one for one. It was more of a hassle to write the prompt. But now with a well-structured prompt and an agent's MD file and access to a GitHub repo. You can fire that off, walk away for 10 minutes. And I'm not a great engineer anymore. I'm not a great, so it's doing hours of work for me, that would take me hours. And I can be doing something else, which is almost more powerful, that I can give my attention to other things while it does it.
Okay, so you mentioned Codex, and specifically, are y'all using that? Are you using it command line or inside Visual Studio, or what flavors tend to work the best for you?
So my best productivity has been on the CLI, right on the command line. And so it's effectively a chatbot that's got access to your file system on your local host. So I would say 70% of my time in there. And then I've got Codex inside of Visual Studio. So it's nice to go in and kind of, browse your files or look at things, look at logs, interface with it that way. But primarily it is, here's what I need you to do. Show me the plan. Get the plan, revise the plan. I like this plan, move forward with the plan. And it goes in that cycle. And so I don't try to do a one shot, do everything. I don't know if this is because of 30 years of pain of software development. It's like, what do I need to do to get a tight module clean and working? Check, lock it in. That's Lego one. Then you just go to the next one and the next one and the next one. And for me personally, it just builds higher quality software that I can rely on.
In Visual Studio, are you, when you use it in there, are you using VS Code or the full Visual Studio?
Oh, sorry, just VS Code. So that was
great.
That was a slip back to 20 years ago. So just
Nice.
VS Code with the Codex plugin, and then
Yep.
I don't use the API. I just log in with my ChatGPT Pro account or Team Workspace account.
And that you've noticed with the Pro plan at $20 a month, have you ever hit the throttle or the limit, or has it been seemingly plenty per month?
It is. I've not hit the limit, and I would say, I'm coding, 30 to 70% of the day on a couple projects lately, just to see where I could push this thing. I have both within the business. I've got my $20 pro or a plus account or workspace account, but then I have a personal $100 a month account just to get access to all their latest stuff.
Okay.
But on that $20 account, I have not hit a limit. Now, where I could see hitting a limit is when, and I'm not doing this yet, but parallel processing on multiple projects, where you get a clear line of thought, launch it, next project, clear line of thought, launch it. So you could probably eat up the tokens that way, but I haven't hit it yet. Anthropic, I think, is a little, they put more caps on it because they got, when they were the first to market, and people just gold rush in with their unlimited account, and so they had to really throttle back.
Yeah, what I don't have a clear understanding on is which of these tools and providers even establish a clear and measurable limit, and then even the ones that do actually go and cut it off when they hit some limit, versus do they really just want to be relaxed on that to get initial adoption and initial users and lock people in and get in a habit to using it? So
right.
I don't quite understand where limits are across these tools yet.
Yeah, Anthropic, it's more cloudy for me. Codex, because I live there, they've got a little /status, and so I can see my 5-hour limit and my weekly limit, and with little progress bars. And so just tokens in and out from those conversations. So
nice. And so is it then the model that you find yourself selecting most of the time? Is that GPT-5, or which one do you end up using?
So inside of the Codex CLI platform, also the same for integrated into Visual Studio, was up until 3 days ago a GPT-5 Codex specific model. So it was a tuned model for coding. Now it is GPT-5.1 as of last week, and so it's I think, tuned up, or it may be generalized, just GPT 5.1 coding.
Got it. Okay.
So I'm primarily using that, nothing else. And again, I think one of my engineering strengths is I wasn't as smart as other great engineers, and so it forced me through the lens of simplicity, which is probably why I ended up in product, working with engineering teams, people that were stronger at it than I was. But for me, it's like I'm trying to simplify my tool set to get consistency, because my throughput is greater if I'm committed to something that's consistent, because I get my tooling and the infrastructure and the context setting in the environment all set up, and then you're just kind of off and running.
Now, have you found that all of the engineers on your team use it the same way, or is there any variance?
It's definitely variant. And I think it's based on the experience of the engineer and the tooling that they prefer. So some are leveraging, directly in GitHub or in the IDE directly. I'm finding, probably because of my lack of development abilities, living more on the CLI than most. And it's just a very comfortable place for me. It's easy to follow. It's, I don't know, it's just where I'm comfortable. So
Gotcha. So, what is the largest feature or largest enhancement that you've been able to get Codex to do for you? You mentioned like getting it going on something and then walk away and then come back. I mean, you've probably had some failures. I think all of us have. But what what is the largest one where it's worked?
I'll use two examples. One was one of the first wins that I got, where I was like, "Oh, this actually worked." And the second is something that actually was more recent. So the first one was, we were using Zendesk internally, and I don't know if you ever used Zendesk before. It's a great support tool, but they like to charge you for space. And you're going to get locked in on ticket space. You're going to get locked in on file storage space. And so we need a way to archive tickets, but you can't archive tickets through their web interface. You only can do it through an API, right? And so we were in a compliant environment where you have to have data traceability for multiple years. So we needed an archive tool that could interface with Zendesk, grab all the tickets, write the audit history, download all the files, package it all up, get a nice little audit package. And so pointed it at Zendesk API, outlined the specification of what I wanted, wrote it through, and it does all the API throttling, the streaming, the writing to HTML, the JSON archives, everything. And so over a series of probably 3 days of kind of layering that through, it nailed it. And so that was my first win, where I'm like, okay, this has turned a corner where you can go from a vision of a product to something that's actually working in a secure way. And that to me was exciting. And the second one was, I was working on a project lately, and it was using OpenAI's prompting, the API, to go and do transformations and a bunch of stuff in a long sequence. And it was timing out. So I needed to switch everything over to streaming, the responses API streaming, right? Which means your error handling has to change, your inputs have to change, how you do your logging has to change. And it refactored everything from start to finish to go from one-shot prompt to streaming for 9 different prompts across 7 different stages, out of the box, one shot. And that, I was shocked. I was shocked that it worked.
Nice. Yeah, you mentioned cleaning up stuff in Zendesk. I had a test SQL server where through the automation it just creates multiple instances of a test database with unique names, and got to the point where this test server just, I mean, it can handle it, but just a whole bunch of junk databases that really needed to be cleaned up. And it's like, oh my gosh. And you can go into SQL Management Studio and with well, it wasn't Codex CLI, it happened to be Claude CLI, but I think the same thing. It was, hey, connect to this test database, and all of the databases that are named in this pattern go ahead and list them all out. Of course, it found them all, and it said, and delete them all. And, and it's just generating PowerShell and command lines under the covers. But yeah, the time savings
Right.
is really cool.
You're braver than I am. The deletion makes me a little more nervous, but that's it works. It works
Test
great.
database server,
Yeah, well, there you go. Just trash it.
Right. So,
That's great. That's excellent.
All right, so that's AI coding. Now, you mentioned using AI for business workflows, and I think last week at the .NET Conf, that Microsoft announced the agent framework, and there are a whole bunch of new enhancements there. But can you illustrate what the scenarios were and like why you even thought, you know what, I bet you we can make an AI tool for this, and how it turned out?
Yeah, I think the agentic frameworks that are emerging, I think, are really interesting. But where I'm seeing like on the ground traction is not just throwing an agent out to work as a human does. The hardest part to getting ROI on this is historically the same problem it's always been, which is have a human explain what they want to get done from step 1 to step 10. If there's 10 steps in this process, and then you have to get that defined and then get the inputs and outputs. But take, a common practice, let's say for writing, right? You've got to go gather information. You have to analyze this information. You have to do initial drafting. You have to do selection of media that might go with this to augment or enrich the writing. You got to do editorial review. You've got to make revisions. You've got to publish, right? So as you think through, gathering and editing and writing and revising, it's a repetitive process, right? And so you can accelerate things for humans to still control and review, and then take that to scale. In the legal world, if you are reviewing a case, same thing. It's like, I've got to go read a bunch of documents and determine what my win theme might be. And then I've got an opposing counsel. Okay, how are they going to look at it? What are their counter themes? How might I then review and look at the pros and cons against those counter themes? Once I have that and I've established my theme, I know how they're going to attack me. What jury might I want for this, right? So it's a very process-oriented thing with a lot of text reading around it. And again, it doesn't eliminate the need for human thought, but it can accelerate how you can look at that. Medicine is another place. So my brother's company has their own proprietary EMR, and they have AI integrated with that, and it can take basically a HIPAA compliant voice interaction, patient to physician, transcribe all that in a secure HIPAA compliant way. It runs it through sophisticated prompting that doctors have vetted, and then we'll do an initial chart writing with differential diagnoses. So again, the doctor's in charge of the clinical health and writing and responsibility. But what if there's an edge case on a patient that you might see 3 times in your career that's buried in a textbook? Well, this can help you find those little edge cases, and that's going to provide us better healthcare. It's going to provide us, better legal opinions. It's a really powerful tool.
So, in those cases, any lawyer or paralegal or doctor or physician assistant could use ChatGPT and just chat their way through and help kind of at their own thought process. But beyond just using chat with searches and all that, what have you actually put together, and what's the tool chain, and what's running, and is it multiple people in the workflow? Is it one person all the way through start to finish? And how does that work?
Yeah, so I usually categorize team usage in 3 ways. Basically, you've got personal usage, team usage, and enterprise usage. So let's just start at what everybody's currently doing, which is what I classify as personal usage. So most of us now have a ChatGPT account or an Anthropic account, and we can log in and we can chat. It's private to us. It knows our context. And that was really good, but you've probably have all experienced like the cutting and pasting and I'm not connected to all my tooling and all the things, right? So it's really good, but you're kind of in this disconnected environment.
Disconnected, yeah.
Yeah. Then OpenAI is doing a good job of making it more accessible to teams, right? So you have projects. You can have a shared project in your team. You can have a custom GPT that can go across your projects. So you're starting to create assets in the enterprise, but it doesn't reach what I would classify as the enterprise level where you need quality control, quality assurance, logging, traceability, observability, like all the stuff that we're accustomed to, and especially regulatory environments for enterprise software.
Mhm.
None of that goes away. So now how do you inject AI that is not deterministic, stochastic, meaning that it can have different outputs on every time you ask it a question? How does that fit within the enterprise? The model that I'm seeing that is working well is, well, I'll use another example. So you asked for a specific example, which was monitoring call logs. So you have a front desk that's taking a phone call that gets transcribed, and you have to grade how that person interfaced with the customer. And we're going to grade that person really in three areas: were they, polite and respectful with the customer? Were they accurate with the information that they provided to the customer? And did they try to convert the customer according to our policies from a prospect to a customer?
Mhm.
And so what the AI can do is grade those things, but the human looks at that and like, you know what? It didn't grade it properly. So the hardest part in the whole project was getting the feedback loop from the human back to the engineers to revise the prompts, to then regression test against the baseline, to then push out to production. So the missing piece in enterprise is the feedback loop when the AI misses the mark. And then the
Okay.
quality control to deploy software like you always have, with version control and change control and fallbacks and all the stuff. And so that to me is what I'm really excited about is like DevOps and SecOps and all the stuff. It all stays. This is software. It's just a new way to enhance how your software works.
So I want to dig into that scenario just to kind of get to the engineer details. You mentioned calls are transcribed, so it sounds like there's an already existing tool that's listening and transcribes. And does it like drop it on a shared network folder or put it in a database somewhere?
This particular voice over IP system that they're using
Mhm.
uh, drops a WAV file on an S3 bucket.
Okay, and so what process wakes up and checks the S3 bucket?
You've got an Amazon Lambda function that
Okay.
listens for files on a periodic basis, grabs files that are new effectively, basically pipelines each WAV file into a receiving prompt, uses it's either Whisper or the latest transcription service from OpenAI, so it can detect the voices, so it knows who's talking,
Mm.
transcribes that effectively to ASCII text. ASCII text then goes to a triage prompt. What we found is don't try to do too much with one prompt. Use discrete functions. So the first triage prompt is, should I grade this call, yes or no? Because
Okay.
sometimes you've got, hey, wrong number, sorry, click. Okay, triage, we don't even touch it. So
So
AI is
so
like
you've
rejects it.
got is it just regular code that says, "Hey, I've got this file in S3 bucket. Let me use this API to give me the transcript." Oh, okay. And then when is the first LLM prompt?
So Python, in this particular case, Python is the glue.
Okay.
Uh, the first LM, the first prompt is to take the WAV file and transcribe it to text.
Oh, that's a prompt. Okay.
That's a prompt. So that is an OpenAI call to Whisper, which can take a WAV file and transcribe it. The second AI prompt is take this call transcript and evaluate whether we should grade it. Yes, no, return a JSON object with a 1 or a 0. So
Okay.
now we're grading true or false. If false, right, the Python code picks that up, logs it, archives it, makes it part of the reporting for the week. If it's yes, all right, I'm now going to send it to the next large language model prompt. This is all within OpenAI's framework to assess the respectful tone of the call.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so then it gets a grade back for tone, and it goes to the next prompt, which is, were you accurate with the information you provided? And then it goes to another prompt, which is, did you properly try to convert according to our policies? So we could optimize, like with caching, passing that transcript around, but the cost was low enough where it's like just we passed it in 3 different times.
Yeah.
So
Got it.
3 different agents or 3 different prompts assess the same call transcript, each for its own purpose. So you've got a respect expert, a tone, like a tone expert, an accuracy expert, and a conversion expert.
And when you say a tone expert, is it like a paragraph of text saying you are an expert in human tone? Is it that kind of,
This
or
was
how
the
do
fun
you?
part, is we worked with the managers who trained humans to do this work.
Okay.
And so the humans were grading. And so that means they had to train a person to grade the calls. And so they had a standard operating procedure on what to look for, examples of good calls, examples of bad calls, what would be outside of bounds, what's inside of bounds. And we took their standard operating procedure and their training materials and synthesized that into a prompt. And we attached some of the knowledge to extend the prompt for examples. So when you have a prompt, you can have just the text, the system prompt,
Yeah.
but you can also attach knowledge, which are effectively markdown files. We converted to markdown because it reads it and it's a little tighter to compact on how you build it. And so the prompt actually can reference the extension of the markdown file to really create a really rich, interpretation and then result.
So did you attach as knowledge the entire training manual or or was it a summary of it? How
We,
much of it?
it was basically the highlights, and then we converted effectively what they had in Word or a Google Doc into tight markdown.
Okay. So you took the
Yep.
whole word.
Yep.
Some people are kind of, well, they don't know how much this is going to cost and they're trying to count tokens and um is every bit of the system prompt and the knowledge, that markdown file, is every bit of it round tripped every time as an input token, or how does that work under the covers?
So if you are sending it as a user prompt every time, yes, right?
Okay.
But you can use OpenAI's platform service to basically put the prompt in the cloud with the big system prompt in the cloud, and you are just calling that prompt ID with the smallest amount of data that you send to it, and then you only get charged for the data you're sending in there, not the giant system prompt.
Okay,
And
I think
so
that's an important concept, because then you can be really rich and use a lot of words to ground that interaction.
that's right. And then ChatGPT 5.1, one of the features that just came out last week that's not highly publicized is they have prompt caching. I think the window's 24 hours roughly. And so even with some of these round trip costs, right? I need to go benchmark it before I give numbers, but like I ran like 2 runs on a really small data set and I saw a drop in like 40% in cost. From let's say $1.10 to 60 cents kind of drop. So I need to go vet all my metrics and make sure I'm looking at the data right. But I'm going to suspect that we're going to see a drop there with like people are going to get smarter with caching and all the different things that computers have been doing for a long time.
Yeah. And all the providers are trying to compete with each other. So if one of them has a great idea and it works
Right.
out, then all the other providers
It spreads like wildfire.
yeah. Hey, competition is great for all of us customers of
It's
these
amazing.
systems.
It's amazing.
So, Chris, as we kind of close up here, those are some great stories, and I know the listeners are going to be looking around for opportunities in their companies to do something similar. Um, uh, what types of things are you looking at next, where you kind of know that it's likely to work out, but you just haven't done it yet?
Uh, Areas that I'm going to continue to invest in the coding tools. I think the area that is coming that's not quite here yet is like video generation. You'll see things like Sora or VO3 from Google. Like you can see the sparks and the hint of great video coming,
Mm-hmm.
but it's hard to pipeline it at scale with like an API. So I think that's definitely coming. I think the big providers, OpenAI, Anthropic, Microsoft, are all moving to make it easier for us to deploy these into the enterprise. With Microsoft's doing a great job with like all the tooling they're putting around it. OpenAI is
Mm-hmm.
doing a great job. So I think for me, it's speed and cost in getting making it easier to deploy these to teams. I get asked all the time, like, where do I start? Right. And so I'm like, well, are you using it personally? Yes, no. If no, go get your ChatGPT account and start just playing with it personally with your own data and put as much of it in there as you're comfortable with. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the next is, all right, how do I bring this into my business? Well, go get an OpenAI Team Workspace account. It's $30 a month per user, and set up a shared project and build your first custom GPT for the entire team to use. And it's not about getting it right, but it's about being in motion to try pushing the tool to see where it can go.
Mm.
The third thing is start thinking about your business. Any repetitive task that touches revenue or can substantially drop costs that you're repeating constantly, but still takes human distinction or human assessment. Get a spreadsheet out, Google Sheet, Microsoft Excel sheet. Column A is process step. Column B is input. Column C is expected output. And just start writing down what are the 10 steps with inputs and outputs. And if you can codify those 3 columns, there's a high likelihood you can take a little bit of Python code and 4 or 5 prompts and you chain that together, and now it's a loop. And this is where you can really start to automate things inside the business.
And I would say probably a little bit of C# code too. I mean, is there anything
C# there you
magic
go.
about? Yeah.
The great news is you pick your language of choice. The LLM will help you.
Yeah, nice. Well, Chris, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing with us those great stories about how you've been successful with generative AI. It's been great.
Well, Jeffrey, thanks for everything you guys are doing at Clear Measure, and keep it up, and we appreciate you guys.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And until next time, dear listener, keep shipping.
You've been listening to the Azure and DevOps podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Visit our sponsor, ClearMeasure, at www.clearmeasure.com. And on behalf of your host, Jeffrey Palermo, thanks for listening, and may God bless you.